I'm really happy to be here with you all. I'm here for the summit. So as you all know, this is the Community Advocacy and Youth Outreach, Building Community Leaders and Youth Community Involvement panel. So my name is Mayra Cruz. I am the Climate Justice Director for Catalyst Miami. I'll just give a quick background about who I am. I've been working there for the last few years, working primarily on our climate justice and climate resilience work, and do a lot around education and awareness and pushing for equitable and just policies, especially around climate change issues. So I'm very happy to be here with you all. And we'll introduce our panelists that we have for you all today. And I'll just note, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. I will be tracking those and bringing those up at the end for our Q&A session. So first, I'd like to welcome Corker. In her role, Corker oversees the community development needs for Comerica's Florida market, which includes Broward, Collier, and Palm Beach counties. With more than 20 plus years of experience in serving the community, mortgage and banking industry, she leads Comerica's financial education initiatives in her service area, with a focus on low to moderate income communities. Corker is responsible for fostering a positive community outreach relationship within her market. Corker's civic and community involvement includes serving on the board of directors for the Urban League of Palm Beach County, Children's Harbor, Handling Risky Business, Girl BU, Suits for Seniors, and the TED Center. She's also a proud advisory member for Cox Media Group Community and the area-wide aging of South Florida. She's also the founder of Girl BU, a nonprofit organization that has a primary purpose to provide empowerment programs, helping girls reach their greatest version through empowerment, economic and educational life skills by creating connection that promotes them being themselves because everyone else is taken. So next, I love that little line there. I'll introduce John Paul Mejia, or JP. He's better known in his circles as JP, as a Miami-based climate activist and educator working with the Sunrise Movement, a youth movement dedicated to stop climate change and create millions of jobs in the process. His involvement in the Sunrise Movement is shared at both the local and national levels. Locally, JP serves as a founding hub coordinator for Sunrise Movement Miami, where he uplifts the voice of his frontline community through grassroots organizing. Nationally, JP is a spokesperson for Sunrise Movement and has recently joined a team of organizers designing the future of the movement and its politics. Apart from his work at Sunrise, JP is a certified climate speaker, educator, and podcaster, always seeking to center the voices and equitable solutions often left out of the conversation on climate. Lastly, but not least for sure, we have Stibalys Gomez. She's a community organizer that grew up houseless and has decided to dedicate her life to doing everything she can for her communities with the main focus on the climate crisis. She believes we deserve a better future. Definitely agree with that. So with that being said, I will now stop talking so we can hear from our lovely panelists. First, we'll have Corker up. And we know that Mo will be leaving us around the 150 mark. So Mo, I'll give you a few extra minutes in case people have specific questions for you. I'll make sure that we still have a little bit of time to do that for you. So I'll let you kick it off for us. Perfect.
Okay, I took it off the microphone. You know, you try to be fancy, but sometimes things don't work. But welcome everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come and participate on this wonderful panel. Community advocacy for our youth is the next key for us to continue to change the trajectory of lives for everyone. I like to look at things as we have to be recruiters for our next community advocacy of young people to take our roles. We will not be here forever. So that was the purpose of this workshop. So I'm gonna just turn it back over to Mayra. I believe you have some questions for me. I won't take up everyone's time. I'll make sure I answer the questions. I do wanna give a special thanks to my market president, Mr. Dave Kunick, who is also on this workshop, I believe, as a visitor. He serves as the market president for Comerica Bank for Florida, and any other Comerica employees. Thank you so much for attending.
Great. So yes, the first question, and this will be the same set of questions for all of the panelists just to ground us. And then, like I said, we'll go into Q&A. But the first one I wanted them to answer for us is, what inspired you to get involved in community advocacy to begin with? What was that burning spark for you?
I would definitely have to say it was my personal challenges that I dealt with, either growing up or seeing other people throughout life struggle. When you grow up in Black and brown communities, there's always a lack of something missing or something that you can tell is different. And I've always been empowered at the heart to just be community and help empower others to understand that they can change their community. Organizations equal people, people equal organizations. I've always loved to talk. Anyone that knows me on this call knows that I've had a spirit of empowerment, and we can change things. So if you understand your worth, you can definitely get involved. So that is why I feel that I'm in community advocacy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So just to kind of follow up and dig in a little bit more, because we do have some younger high schoolers here that are getting started, probably just trying to figure out their path. How do you find that issue that you're really passionate about? And then how do you actually pursue that moving forward? How do you make that happen?
Well, to anyone listening, I think that's a very simple but also complicated question. It's really, what is a problem? What is a problem that you foresee that's either immediately affecting you or people around you? And once you identify that problem, you apply so much pressure that you will create change within yourself and with the other people that you're impacting. So for me specifically, my passion and my problem that I saw was the lack of girl empowerment for our young girls, especially Black and brown girls. We grow up not understanding our worth. So a lot of us grow up without two-parent family households. A lot of us miss that father in our lives. So I decided to do something about it instead of always feeling sorry for some of the things that happened to me in my life of growing up through my journey. So I found the problem, I created it, and now I have a nonprofit that I help change lives every day. And I'm also blessed to work for one of the most amazing banks, Comerica Bank. On my corporate side, I deliver financial education and I provide resources on behalf of the bank to help raise expectations in the communities that we serve. And with every workshop, every philanthropic investment, I know that we are helping change the trajectory of people's lives.
Yeah, and hopefully, if people don't have questions specifically for you about BU, I definitely want to ask some because I think that's amazing. And specifically, especially for those that are younger getting started, what's the specific advice that you would say for them when they're starting out their community advocacy journey? Like, where should they get started beyond, they found the thing that they really care about. So now where should they go? What are the institutions or the places they could go to really start to build that out?
I would like to first suggest that you understand the power of your voice. Your voice is where it all starts. So once you recognize that your voice is powerful, you combine that with that passion, and then you can attempt to start and create change. Often we as young people, even when I was younger, I didn't realize how important I was to the world. So that's my first thing, is to make sure you understand that you are a key changer in this world, and you do have a vested interest in helping change the community that you live in and others. So that's the first thing. Don't think you're on your own. Always communicate what your passion and what your principles are. Everyone around you should know what you're passionate about. And if they don't, then you're not speaking enough. You're not letting people know that this is what you're currently focused on and how you would like to change it. Create your own nonprofit. A lot of kids are creating businesses. A nonprofit is also a business. So if you are ever in the business of saying, I definitely want to go to the next step, create a nonprofit, start a local club, get with your counselors at your school. Schools love for local clubs. So instead of saying something's wrong at your school, find out how you can start a club to motivate others and bring others on your impactful, powerful journey as well. There are a number of small organizations that we at Comerica Bank support that I know offer different clubs. I can name the Urban League is on here. We definitely, partner with Score Brower, who could help young kids if they're interested in starting their own nonprofit. But we have the most powerful tool at our hands, youth, the phone. The phone will tell you everything that you need. It's at your fingertips. We can go to YouTube University and learn so much if you really do want to take things to the next step.
And I feel like now we can add TikTok to that too. There's so many things. No, I think that's a really great point. Like the also, use the resources available to you. So I know we have like a few more minutes with you. So I just wanted to give people a moment in case there's specific questions you want to ask to Mo. Like I mentioned, she'll have to leave us in a few. So this is a perfect opportunity if you have specific questions to ask of her. So I'll just pause here to allow for that. And if not, then like I said, I have my own questions to ask.
Not all at once.
You have a great resource here. Okay, I'll ask them while people are thinking through. Okay, actually one just came in. What are some of the most outstanding impacts you have found your nonprofit has had on the girls you've met?
Oh my goodness, just getting the messages, or when I'm on another youth empowerment workshop and someone says, I know her, that's Coach Mo, and she's talked to me before and she's helped empower me before. I've been on so many workshops where, we as adults, and I know we've got adults on here, we have to realize that our youth do have problems. I think sometimes as adults, we like to think that they don't have problems because they're not the same equivalent to adult problems, but they do. And, us being transparent and understanding is not a weakness in parenting. It's not a weakness in being an adult. It's a ability to comprehend what our youth are going through. And it's a time to listen, because those are the people who are going to have to take care of us when we get older.
That is absolutely true. This is another great question that just came in. How did you create a board for your nonprofit? How did you go about finding the right people?
Well, right now, I only have 2 people on my board, because I do think you have to be very particular about growing your board. Your board has to be your brand champions, your brand ambassadors. So if anyone on here is interested, next year, I will be looking for possible new board members. So definitely you can put that in there. So right now I'm very limited to the board, but if you are going to create a board for your particular nonprofit, make sure that they are invested and they are your biggest cheerleaders. They should be able to advocate on your behalf. They should know your mission. They should know your values, purpose, and they should also participate in your programs and workshops that you do.
Perfect. Any other questions from the audience? I'll ask one because I think it's important to get out there too. What obstacles do you typically face when you're doing community advocacy? Because it's not easy. It's not an easy line of work. You're dealing with people. People are inherently change their minds. There's things happening in their own lives. So what typically do you face? And then how do you try to overcome those challenges?
The biggest challenge that I face, especially from my girl empowerment workshops, is actually getting girl participants. You will be so surprised. You don't always have girls flocking at your workshop to become empowered per se, versus if I say, hey, let's go to the skating rink or let's go over here and party. So what I found the best answer for that is to make sure that I partner with different schools that already have clubs that are looking for someone to come in and provide that type of empowerment. It just works easier than trying to set up and go on a silo, let's say on Eventbrite, and say, hey, I have a girl BU workshop, or I have some type of, workshop. We work directly through the schools to help connect with that audience that's kind of hard to connect with because they've got so many things going on. So definitely utilize your schools. They're the number one source. That's where all your youth are. And don't act in silos. If I'm a nonprofit and there's another nonprofit, you learn to collaborate and work together. There's enough kids out there for us all to impact and help change their lives.
Absolutely. It has to be a joint effort for us to be successful in all of this. So I see we have like 1 or 2 more minutes with you. So someone did ask about your social media where people can follow you. So if you're able to drop that in the chat, that would be great. And then I guess the last question to wrap up is, how did you market your nonprofit?
Great question. I am currently in a master's program at FIU for marketing, not to just learn marketing, but I have a focus on making sure I understand the marketing psychology towards low to moderate income communities. How are our communities impacted by marketing? But I use my social media. I speak about my program, and my kids, my girls, they share the moments that they share with me with other teams and other kids. And that's normally how it goes around. People just start talking about it, and I end up getting more girl BU advocates and more girls who understand to be them because everyone else is taken.
You're clearly a seasoned veteran when it comes to panels, because that was the perfect little line to wrap up. But just want to give you the opportunity in case there's like any parting words you want to give to everyone, like the last minute that we have with you. Any words of wisdom you'd like to leave with everyone?
Definitely, this whole workshop is a panel of people that are attending as well. Always communicate, update your LinkedIn. If you're on here, youth, LinkedIn is the power of the networking tool. So make sure people know your passion on your LinkedIn and just follow through. Do not give up. You'll get a million no's, but guess what? That one yes will still help change one life at a time.
Perfect. That was such a great way of ending. Thank you so much for your time. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you. Y'all have a great day and enjoy your other panelists. Bye-bye.
Bye. Great. So now we're all warmed up. So keep thinking through your questions and keep putting them in the chat. So next we'll turn things over to JP to give a brief introduction about who he is, the work that he does, and then we'll get into the same set of questions with JP.
Thank you, Mayra. Hi, everyone. I am JP. I'm a local and national organizer for climate. I work with a variety of different groups. Locally, I work with Sunrise Movement and the Clio Institute, as well as with the myriad of folks working on climate in Miami, like Mayra, like MCA, like Catalyst. And I'm really happy to be with you all today. I work on several different things. Maybe I'll talk about them. If not, just if we don't have enough time, just feel free to look at my LinkedIn, as Mo said. but I'm really psyched to be here with you all.
Thank you. So same question to you. What inspired you to get involved in community advocacy? And clearly climate is a big part of your life. So what drove you there?
Yeah, I guess I don't think this requires a really complex answer. I think I'll say the most succinct one because it feels the most honest. Motivates me to do the work I do, simply put, are the people and places I love. My experience as a local organizer is what gives me the clear-headedness to be able to answer that question. Being an organizer isn't glamorous, despite how it may seem sometimes on Instagram. It's actually really exhausting. And for that reason, good organizers always have to have an incredible sense of why they do the work they do if they want to do it, right? I'm sure a lot of us can agree with that. Sometimes we even ask ourselves, why am I doing this? When we're like really tired, we do ask ourselves that, right? But when we have an answer for it, it makes sense despite how tired we are. So the way I found that answer was in sophomore year of high school. I'm on a gap year right now, about to go into my freshman year of college. But in my sophomore year of high school, that's when we were hit by Hurricane Irma, right? It brushed over Miami. And my mom and I fled to the home of a more affluent family friend for more safety and resources. And in the aftermath of the storm, as I started heading back home, I started to take a look around me. And despite the fact that the storm had changed its trajectory and merely brushed over Miami, we saw that people got hurt, right? And those Miami streets that we all love, the ones that take you from Cuba to Haiti in a matter of steps, were just flushed out completely. And I started thinking about my own identity as a Latino kid growing up low income. And I thought about the identities of others too, that are more vulnerable and marginalized in our communities, and how our community invests in them, or lack thereof. And it really made me think of the climate crisis, this crisis that I knew a lot about from like a scientific angle, because I used to be a science geek before I went into any of this like politics stuff. And that moment was incredibly personal and politicizing for me, right? I sort of thought, wow, like, what is it going to take for people to care about my people and our lives and all of our collective lives together? And I just saw the amount of carelessness and neglect that people had to be resilient in the face of. And I was really disheartening. But I think what really gave me an inspiration to delve into whatever work I'm doing now was also on that day when I saw people from all walks of life rebuilding each other's homes and taking care of each other. And I developed a new personal and intellectual orientation to power, to what power means, that actually stuck with me. And a year later, when the UN released that report saying we had 12 years to fundamentally take bold action on climate change, I understood what that meant. I understood what that meant for me as a young person. I knew what that meant for people in my neighborhood. I knew what that meant for the people and places I love, right? And I felt that sense of urgency and politicization once again. And that year, I didn't know what to do, but I wanted to do something. And I began whatever organizing was. I began with a school walkout at my school, inspired for the March for Our Lives kids. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. I spent time talking to different students and teachers about the idea. I planned it all anonymously, knew I could probably get in a lot of trouble. And the day of, I was really scared. Thought that I might be the only one that was going to walk out, which would, number one, probably be more likely for me to get in trouble. But number two, it would be like pretty freaking embarrassing, right? Like if I was the only person that walked out. But I did. I walked out, and to my surprise, about 300 other people walked out, student and staff. And I just sort of stood there in disbelief for a second, looking at all of my teachers and friends and also kids I didn't know gathered under this common cause, under this tent and orientation to power. And that day, as a young person, as a 16-year-old, I realized this is what power feels like. And we all have it, it's just untapped. And it was like a drug. It was like something that was really hopeful to me. And I was like, wow, I don't have to delve into despair anymore. I can actually do stuff and organize my community and build with the people I love. And that's what led me to the work I'm doing now. And I found myself working with lots of different folks in Miami, with Sunrise Movement at the national level, and just being really passionate and really hardworking to build the future, or a world that is more just, equitable, and sustainable for all of us, right? Not just the wealthy or corrupt few. So that's how I got involved, and that's what keeps me passionate.
I love it. Yeah, that's really inspiring to hear, and hopefully, especially for the younger folks, recognizing that you don't always have to know what you're doing exactly. Part of that's being hopeful. Part of that is, just putting the work in, and then you kind of figure things out as you go along. But it's definitely okay if you don't have every single answer figured out. Even the adults in the room, you'll notice we don't always know what we're doing either. We're kind of all of this in all of this together. So you kind of already hit the second question I was gonna ask about, like, finding that thing that you're really passionate about. For you was clearly that personal experience and connecting it to what you were seeing around you. So I want to kind of dig in more into the next question, which is kind of getting more into that advice of, if you're talking to someone else that's a young activist or inspiring young activist that's looking to get started in community advocacy and outreach, youth outreach, where would you tell them to get started? Like, taking from your experience and what you learned and doing this walkout and everything else, like, what advice would you give them as they're getting started?
Wow. That's definitely hard, but I think that, there's no handbook on how to do this. There's some good books. There are. I have a couple of them. I can send out a reading list, but really, when it boils down to it, good organizing and good power building is all about relationships. It's all about learning how to build intentional relationships with people and building camaraderie that says, I got your back and you got mine. And that's how we're going to build power together. And you can start off small, right? You can start off small by having one-on-ones with different people, like your friends, or maybe strangers, or maybe people you haven't met before. And as you start building those intentional relationships and start weaving in your priorities for whatever issue or for whatever cause you're advocating for, you can start building power in those very small ways. And, suddenly when there's a call to action, you'll have a network of people that can support you and that you can support in return. So I'd say the first step to learning how to organize is learning how to build intentional relationships. And for us as humans, that's what humanity is all about. Organizing is about stepping into our most human roots and reorienting an idea of power that fundamentally reaches our humanity and tries to overcome issues that have alienated us from humanity, right? If you're organizing around racial justice, for example, you're talking about extending humanity to people who have been reduced from it. When you're talking about housing justice, you're talking about the fact that every human deserves the right to a home. When you're talking about climate justice, you're talking about how every human deserves the right to a livable future and a safe planet. And orienting yourself back into power and humanity and building intentional relationships. I know this all sounds like very meta and like hippy dippy, but baseline, like bottom line, learn how to build good relationships with people and be really authentic. Sometimes we're taught like in professional settings to like say certain things and like not be vulnerable and not be too personal. It's very different in the organizing world. We want to be as vulnerable as we can and be really authentic and intentional with people.
That is great advice to leave people with. So yeah, just if you're taking notes, intentional relationships, being authentic, not being scared to be vulnerable, just be real with people. You can tell when you have a fake friend, right? Like that doesn't feel the same as like your go-to person. Definitely, yeah, that's what you need to build a powerful movement for sure. So great. Well, we're going to switch to Stibalys now, and then at the end, we'll have time for the Q&A. So please feel free to keep thinking through your questions and pop them into the chat, and I'll keep track of those. So Stibalys, would you like to introduce yourself, give a little bit background of who you are and what you do, and then we'll get into the questions.
Cool. Hey guys, I'm Stibalys Gomez. You can call me Stevie. A lot of the organizing that I have been focusing on has to do around housing and as well as the climate crisis. So I work a lot with Miami's tenant union, as well as doing things with like Catalyst Miami. Definitely, as well, I work on creating systems that currently don't exist yet. For example, something I'm currently working on is a community composting system. So if you get all of the food waste in the world right now and put it up and put it all together, it would be equivalent to the third largest country. So food waste is a really large problem. And since I believe that feeding locally is the future, something that we should start building towards is finding ways to reduce our food waste. I feel that a community composting system is a really good solution. If every community within a certain radius had a community composting system that collects your food waste, that would already it would then take the food waste to create compost, which would work as soil. And I want to work also on expanding it further to have that community composting system attached to a community garden in the community that people in the community could then buy the vegetables and fruits that are grown there. So with that is the main thing that I've been really working on, as well as getting as much experience as I can on the ground with people that are currently struggling. Earlier in one of the previous speakers mentioned as well that like that experience that you get by like knocking on doors and really talking with the community is really important. So definitely like I've been taking a lot of my time to work on that as well.
Thank you for that introduction. Yeah, you have a fan here about the composting at home and making it even bigger. Agreed. So same question to you. So you kind of started touching upon this a little bit, but what inspired you to get involved in the work that you're doing in community advocacy and outreach? What got you there?
So I grew up houseless. I've lived in so many shelters that I've lost count. I've had to move from school to school. I've never been more than like 2 years in the same school because of it. I lost my mom also at a very young age. I was 15 years old. Life is just consistently throwing things my way. And for example, just in the last week, my own father was sent to TGK, and I am, a daughter of immigrants, so they're even suffering more. So essentially, it's just a constant throw of life showing me that I can either let it beat me down, or I can be resilient to it and take the experiences that are thrown my way to make a better future. Experiencing this makes me feel like, okay, what can I do to make sure that the future generations don't have to experience this? So that's my resolve.
Thank you. Thank you for being so honest, and going back to what JP was saying, you're being very vulnerable here with us. So we really appreciate that. So giving some of, clearly like a lot of wisdom that you've gotten over time, like what, if you're talking to someone, they're like, I don't know where to get started. Like, I don't even know what issue it is that I care about. What would you tell them? Like, how should they go about finding that thing that they're really passionate about, and how should they go about pursuing it?
When it comes to, like, if you're someone that has never been involved with organizing and wants to really get involved, I recommend definitely attending webinars. Get as much experience and knowledge as you can to educate yourself on the issues, so that you can then go out and educate others. For example, Catalyst Miami has 2 programs, HEAL and the CLEAR program. I highly recommend them. I am a graduate from those programs. I would not be the person that I am today without them. I gained a lot of leadership skills through it. I got to meet so many amazing individuals that are just as passionate about these issues. And the people that you meet in these programs are people you're going to talk to for months, years in the future, that are just as passionate, that you can reach out to. So also the Clio Speaker Network is a really, really good one that I attended last year. Incredibly informational as well. These are mainly in regards to like the climate crisis, which for me is my biggest one. Just dive into the topics and seeing which ones, I guess, speak to you the most. So with me, the climate crisis spoke to me the most. I'm currently in Florida, and we are the most vulnerable state to the climate crisis. Yet we have a lot of officials and things like that trying to advocate for things around adaptation and not mitigation. Which, for me, it's like, I want to be able to live in this state, years down the line. And that for me is what made me feel more in regards to like diving deeper into the climate crisis and finding my passion in that. Yeah, so definitely just attending webinars, getting affiliated with different types of organizations, and figuring out what speaks to you the most. Then having those conversations, like JP mentioned, starting off with your friends and your family. Those conversations are, as even if you may think that it's not impactful, they are incredibly impactful, because with speaking to those that are closest to you, you'll be able to branch out and be able to talk about these different topics with a lot of different people.
Absolutely. Thank you for the shout outs for our programs. I went ahead as you were talking and dropped the links into the CLEAR program that you mentioned, and the HEAL program that she mentioned, the Catalyst offers. I think there's actually still time to join HEAL if you're really interested in housing justice work. We start next week, actually. So feel free to still submit your application. And then I also added in the Clio Speakers Network. But yeah, I think that's fantastic advice. I think a lot of people just don't realize there's a lot of great resources in our own backyard here in South Florida. There's a lot of amazing groups that people can tap into. And so, yeah, I definitely recommend, even if like you go to one organization, they're not the one for you, I bet they can refer you to, many others. I know I've worked with Stevie, and I was like, hey, like, I think you should check out this group that does housing work. Like, it helps to build those connections for sure. Just one more question for you, and then we're gonna open up to the Q&A. So please, like I said, drop those in. You kind of already started to hit on this, but any other advice that you would give to young activists that are looking to get started, beyond like kind of finding the places to go to get that training and stuff like that? What are other words of wisdom you provide?
Well, so one of the biggest things that I really want to say is that when others are telling you their limits, they're telling you their limits, not yours. As So I personally want to be someone who is going to run for office, and I am constantly told that, like, oh, you can't do this, or that's not something that's achievable. And I really want to, I can't stress this enough. Those people are telling you their limits. They're telling you as far as they're willing to go for these issues. And those limits are not your limits. You know, now is the time to be creative. What kind of world do you want to live in 5 years from now, 10, 20 years from now? And really think about the different ways. Like I said, there's a lot of the systems that we need to save our planet don't exist yet. Be creative. You know, how can you create, like, for example, the composting? How can you take that and apply it on a larger scale? And you can do that with a lot of different things for your community. So definitely, like, just remember that for sure. Like, the limits that others tell you are theirs, not yours. As well as, if for example, I want to say as well, if you are also someone that wants to run for office, this is something that within the CLEAR program, it lit that fire in me, because I didn't even know that, like, man, me, a low-income individual, growing up houseless, things like that, running for office, it's definitely something that all of us are able to do, 100%. You know, just already having that type of experience in your background, you know, as long as your heart is in the right place, you're already halfway there. You know, so many of these individuals don't have their heart in the right places. So definitely, it's also something that's incredibly achievable. But yeah, and oh yeah, have the conversations and just start. You know, again, oh dude, they mentioned before as well. Mo mentioned this. Your voice is the most important thing, and you already have it. So just get out there, learn what you can, and educate others.
Is anyone else feeling extremely inspired by our panel? Because just lots of great nuggets here that they're dropping with us. Y'all are great. I'm really inspired by both of you and Mo. So we have plenty of time now for Q&A, actually. So we have about 20 minutes left. So please feel free to start dropping in those questions. One that I asked this of Mo earlier, so I'll post this now while people are dropping in their questions. So what are the obstacles that you have faced in the work that you're doing, and how have you worked to overcome those? And either JP, do you want to go first, since Stevie just spoke for a bit?
Sure. Change is really hard to achieve, right? I think there's this word that's a big word, and it's thrown around a lot, and you never really know what it means. I recently learned what it means, and has made me make a lot of sense of the world. But the word is hegemony. And hegemony refers to a dominant set of ideas, or like what is deemed as normal, right? And when we have the basis of what is normal in society being also what makes the most sense, it's really hard to change everything, because you're fundamentally challenging people's logic. And as an organizer, that's the hardest job. And when you start to actually do a really good job at changing the vision or the priorities of your community, and you start changing what seems normal and what makes the most sense, that's when everything's going to topple against you. And that's the crux mistake, or the crux weakness, that a lot of organizers run up against. Whenever you start winning, an established sorry, I'm speaking in like such, but an established reaction is expected, right? And sometimes when we feel the weakest, and when we feel like we're losing the most, and when when it feels like the world is against us, that's when we're actually winning. And it's worth pushing over that. So you're going to have a lot of conversations, if you do community organizing, or if you just care about a cause, that may make you feel like you've lost. You're going to lose campaigns, you're going to lose conversations, you might get into tricky bits of your relationship, but that's part of the process. And the challenge is not giving up. The challenge is having the hope to continue fighting another day. And the reason also why I said building intentional relationships is the first building block of good organizing is because when you fail, the only thing that's going to get you out of that failure is the people who you've built intentional relationships with that are going to hold you. the people who are going to support you, and the people who you're going to feel responsible for overcoming that weakness and like continuing to fight. When you become a good organizer, you are responsible for people, okay? Like you educate people, you rile up people. When you become a leader, when shit hits the fan, sorry, people are going to look at you for guidance. They're going to look at how you behave in a moment of crisis, and they're going to take their cues from you. And that resilience that you have to forge and that hope that you're going to have to wage is the hope that you're carrying for your community. And the only way to achieve that sense of power and that sense of collective priority is by building those shared intentions. But to go back to the question, like those feelings of weakness and those failures and overcoming them are the biggest challenges, I think, of being an organizer.
Stevie, so back to you, same question. Yeah, I think JP, that was really great advice. Yeah, I think someone else asked too about like, how do you keep going when you lose hope or when you're losing hope? It's really tough to create that change, but I think those are really great response to that. So yeah, Stevie, now to you.
Yeah, JP explained it perfectly. I've definitely found that in times where I have, been thrown left and right by this thing called life, the thing that has brought me out has been all the connections and the people I've met along the way that are fighting just as hard, that are facing just the same kinds of, depression and, daunting feelings. We're all feeling it. And remembering that at the same time, we're also feeling hope that, there's other people fighting just as passionate about these things as well. Obstacles are definitely the biggest obstacle is, again, perfectly said by JP, is, those ways of thinking. When you are organizing, like, think about this. Why do community organizers exist? We're organizing the community because the governments are doing what they should be, or communities are being underserved. So when you go up against those kinds of establishments, there will be some type of like backlash and things like that. Yeah, so definitely that is, I feel, the most difficult thing, and learning how to maneuver through those kinds of conversations is the most important, for sure. Being able to talk to people also, not only that have the same views as you, but different views, the ones that are going to probably walk away storming, upset, but being able to handle those conversations and remember, like, that person maybe walked away now, but they went home to think about it, So definitely being able to be resilient and be able to have those types of conversations.
I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that, JP, because I saw you like really nodding your head when she was talking about those difficult conversations. So I wasn't sure if there was anything you wanted to add to that. Totally fine if not.
Sorry, I couldn't find the mute button, but no, I completely resonate with that. And I just like thought of one Maya Angelou quote. I think it's Maya Angelou, but like when you talk to people and when you're building those intentional relationships, it's like, I think this is what you were getting to, CV, but they may forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And I think that's the guiding principle behind organizing.
And just so you know, someone dropped in the chat that you are both wise beyond your years and that you give them a lot of hope for the future. So y'all are definitely inspiring everyone who's in here. So I haven't seen any questions pop up. So just wanted to add in another one. So we've already kind of heard like there's some trainings that people can already tap into now. I know Mo mentioned like create your own nonprofit or create your own club. Are there any other leadership opportunities that you've seen that you recommend for others to tap into? Any other programs or institutions or any other recommendations you would give to those that are seeking out those opportunities? Or any books? I know JP, you had mentioned books.
Books, sure. There's two that come to the top of my head immediately. Number one is Hegemony How To. I can put that in the chat. Hegemony How To, the Good Organizing book. And this one I've just picked up recently. I've been reading it a lot. It's pretty thick. It's called I've Got the Light of Freedom, and it's talking about the organizing tradition in Mississippi during the freedom struggle of the civil rights movement. And it's an awesome book. But I'd say honestly, just keep your eyes peeled for what's going on in your community, and you know, not to diss anyone, but I know that a lot of the profile pictures I see here are a little more mature looking, right? And sometimes in youth organizations, there's different ways for adults to contribute in respective ways. And we really do want to be amplifying the voices of those leading the charge, right? We want to amplify Black and Brown voices. We want to amplify the voices of young people. But that's not to say that, like, no, like you don't have a role to play. Everyone has a role to play, right? It's just that those roles look very different based on who we are. So I'd say support in whatever way you can the efforts of organizers who you know and see in your community, and yeah, keep the conversations going, right? Public discourse and public opinion is something that we all collectively partake in, and being able to share common priorities and being intentional about how we have conversations is a really important aspect of how we actually change our community.
Great, so we have some reading to do now, Stevie.
I'll again say about the Clio Speaker Network program, the Clear and Heal programs, and Heal is still open for registration, right? Starting next week. So definitely those programs and any other program that you come across that you're able to learn more about the things that you come. When it comes to books, I also have a lot of them. I've been currently reading a book called How to Negotiate Anything with Anyone, Anywhere Around the World. There's also another book called Facing the Climate Emergency, How to Transform Yourself with the Climate Truth. Also another good read. Because the climate emergency, one of the biggest things is that, like, it's a really tough emotion to come to terms with. That, like, for example, I'm 24, I'll be 25 this year, and if we continue down the road that we're going, will I get to live to my 40s? Will I get to live to my 50s? And those are things that you'll have to come to terms with. And that book helps with coming to terms with emotions and helping others to come to terms with the emotions to turn it into action. Because people do get overwhelmed or really depressed and fall into these things when they learn the truth, and then it becomes an action. But that book is a really good book to how to basically, oh, you want to show you the cover page of this book. I got it from the library. I like it. It's pretty good in regards to, like, I just recommend reading as much as you can, and coming and just all the amazing books that are recommended just today in this amazing summit. Read them all. Read them all. They're so educational.
Thank you. Those are great suggestions. Any other questions from the audience? We have like about 8 minutes or so before we're wrapped up. So I'll just pause here for a moment and see if any questions come in. Someone else asking for your contact info. So if you're comfortable dropping that in, you can drop that into the chat. One of the things I've noticed when we've done our leadership programs is that sometimes, you know, we see people that have so much potential and are passionate, but sometimes, like, there's that confidence hump to get over when we're building up leadership sometimes, where people are like, I don't know, is my voice like worth being heard? Like, I'm nervous. I don't know, like, this is such a new thing for me. Especially, I know when I first showed up at a commission meeting, they're in person. This was back when we were in person. It was really daunting walking into that space with the people on the dais, like they're above you, literally looking down on you. Like, how do you kind of coax that out of people and kind of like make them feel comfortable in their leadership? Like, how do you build that up in people so that they own that and are able to show up in these spaces that are, you know, they're not always that comfortable to be in? Whichever one wants to go first.
Definitely. So I used to be, and Mayra probably remembers when you first met me, I was so quiet, so shy. My voice was so low. 100%. I was like, man, me speak loud? What? But attending these leadership programs and making these connections definitely helped. And being able to have these conversations with people that are also just as passionate and starting up in that really helped a lot, significantly, to get me to where I am. Also, practicing speech, practicing in front of a mirror, practicing with friends, family, if they're willing to like listen to you present something as well, really helps significantly. It definitely helped me.
Yeah, I resonate with that. I think it's a big measurement of like I don't think you can. Organizing is really about like strong leadership investment, and in order to be a good organizer, like you really have to like develop leaders around you to be just as effective. Um, and I guess like that comes with like a little bit of pressure on them to be like, yo, like I'm deeply investing in you, so I really need you to like step up and do a lot, or like whatever you can, right? And I think that little bit of a nudge, um which is inherent, you know, like I'm counting on you, so you know, I need you to help me out here because I've like invested in you. I think being really intentional about that investment, um and developing the skills of another person is what builds up their confidence, I think, more than a pep talk ever could, right? It comes with practice. It comes with investment. It's like being a teacher, right? You're developing a whole new skill set in a person that isn't taught anywhere else. And you know, whenever you're like really new to something, it's just instinctive for you to be really shy about it because you don't know if you're going to do a terrible job or not. But if you know that you have a strong standing, and if you know that someone who does this really well is investing in you and actually deeply trusts in the ability for you to do something, that's going to open the doors a bit more for you to be confident in your work. And I think the only reason I am like as confident as I am now in my work today is because I received that trust and that investment from people who came before me, and from people who let me know like, yo, I'm counting on you. Don't mess this up, but like, I really need you to like step up. And some of those people were like people from Clio, right? Caroline Lewis. She was always like strong arming me, right? Not to like say anything, but just like, JP, I need you. So I think being a good leader has a little bit of that pressure in it too, to build other people's confidence in a loving way, not in like a Gordon Ramsay way.
Yeah. No, those are really great points. I think yeah, that both of what you said really resonate. I think it's like first giving people the tools to get to a point where they're like, they understand what they're talking about, they feel comfortable, but also I think it is trusting them, letting them like, yes, like you can do this, like it's absolutely possible, and kind of leading by example too. I think that's really important too as leaders. And I think too, this goes for like the older folks in the room. I know I think we have high school students here too. It's providing that support, especially for younger people, letting them know that their voice should be heard and it's part of the conversation. So I know when I was younger, I definitely would not have had the confidence to go about and do the work that I do now. It came with age and practice and all that stuff. So yeah, those are both good nuggets to lay out there. So we're almost done with our time. So I just wanted to give you both an opportunity to kind of wrap us up and see if there's like any last minute advice or just anything you want to leave the audience with in the last 2 minutes that we have here, or even if it's just like plugging in work that you're doing, an action alert, anything you need help with. Just wanted to give you both kind of a minute each to do that. Anyone excited to go first? Stevie even chose him.
So I guess any last advice I would say is definitely if you feel a fire within you to want to go help out in your community, follow it. Go out and also help light that fire in others. Educate yourself to also educate others. And remember that now more than ever is the time to be creative and to be open-minded with the future that we want to have in our lives in the future. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, first action item for all like if there's high schoolers here and any of you are interested in climate or any social justice issues, Sunrise Miami, along with like several, I'm gonna hit you up later, along with like several other groups who we're reaching out to right now, are all invited to this campaign kickoff party that we're having next Thursday. We're launching a campaign for good jobs, and we're launching a campaign to revitalize or reorient to how Miami-Dade should invest in our communities, very on par here, through the lens of climate. So I'll drop in the link to that in the chat for how to sign up. And yeah, it's going to be a bit of a party, like a virtual one. So I'm excited to see you all there if you want to learn more about me and the work I do and just like jump actually into the work.
Perfect. Well, thank you both so much. And thank you to Mo for just an amazing panel. I think you all left us with a lot of good things to think about in the future and how to incorporate these, organizing principles and building intentional relationships, all of that into the work that we all do. So thank you both so much for your time and for everything you shared with us today.
Thank you so much for being a great moderator, Mayra. And it was nice to meet you, Stevie. I'm going to reach out to you too.
Yes, thank you also for today, all of you guys. I learned a lot as well, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for all of us.